Howdy there, people. Welcome back to my channel. I was just sitting here thinking to myself that I need an idea for my next video. So I started thinking, well, what should I make a video about? And then I thought, well, with the recent news that Peter Safran and James Gunn are going to be taking over at DC, I'm going to make a list ranking all the currently existing projects within the DCEU, which consists of 12 movies and 1 TV show, I'm pretty sure. So that's what today's video is going to be. I feel like I should specify that this list is just my opinion. Everyone's going to have a different one, a different ranking, you know, different personal favorites. That's fine. This is mine. I also feel like I should say that at some point I plan to do one of these for the MCU, ranking all the projects in that. But there's like 40 something projects in the MCU, and so that's going to be a very long video. And I don't want to record a long video right now, so we're doing DC today. So enjoy the list. Okay, so falling into the last place on my list, number 13, I have the theatrical cut of Justice League. So back in 2017, when I first watched this movie, and when I walked out of the theaters, I just thought, it was alright. Which really shouldn't have been my first reaction, my reaction to the first live-action Justice League movie, but whatever, I thought it was alright. But then just as the years have passed, and every single time I've rewatched it, I've just liked it less and less. I've just thought it gets continually worse. Like, I continue to dislike this movie even more every time I think about it. Like, I know there was a lot of drama behind the scenes when making this movie. Like, I know it started off as a Zack Snyder movie, and then sadly he had a family tragedy halfway through production, so they brought in Joss Whedon to direct it. And, you know, those two directors just clash totally. Their tones don't match at all. Joss Whedon made the worst movie in the DCEU, at least in my opinion. There's a lot of just kind of weird, inappropriate jokes that don't fit within the movie. There's a lot of, like, the color grading is awful. This movie doesn't look good either. A lot of the characters just act sort of out of character. They don't act like themselves. Specifically Batman, for some reason. Yeah, I don't like this movie. Now at number 12 on my list, I have Wonder Woman 1984. And I know some of you might think it's kind of weird to have this movie below some of the others I have it under, but the reason I have it so much lower is because my expectations for this movie were higher, because I loved the first Wonder Woman, so obviously I thought this one was going to be great. I liked the trailers, you know, I just thought it was going to be really good, and then I went into it, and throughout the movie, like, I just thought, this is okay. But then, after I got out of the theaters, I never thought about this movie ever again. And a movie being forgettable is almost kind of worse than it being bad. Like, I would rather have a movie be terrible and leave an impression on me than just have me never think about it ever again. And that's kind of like the worst thing this movie does, because the first one is so good. I like it a lot. It fumbles in the third act a bit, but, you know, yeah, this movie just, I'm probably never going to watch it again. Now coming in at my number 11 spot, I have Suicide Squad, the 2016 one. And you know, for the longest time, I was a defender of this movie. I actually really enjoyed it. But, you know, with recent rewatches, yeah, I can't defend it anymore. It's not good. There's a lot of just... First of all, there's a lot of cliches. Like, at the end of the movie, they have the big sky beam that a bunch of, like, earlier superhero movies had, you know, and stuff like that. But then also there's a bunch of weird choices. You know, the biggest offender being, of course, Jared Leto's Joker, which is quite possibly one of the worst mistakes ever made in any comic book movie ever. Just everything about it. The casting, the actual performance, the design, that was all terrible. And there's a lot of, like, really cringy lines in this movie, most of them being from the Joker, but some of them being from Harley Quinn and a few other characters. Yeah, and I don't know, the movie just feels like it's paced kind of weird. That one might just be me, because I don't know if I've ever seen anyone else say that, but then again, I don't watch too many reviews for this movie. It just feels like, I don't know, it's just not a very good movie, to be honest. Now at my number 10 spot, I have Aquaman, which I know may be a surprise to some people, because it seems like whenever this movie came out, everyone loved it and was praising it super high. I think it's fine. You know, it's nothing special. It kind of suffers from the same problem that Wonder Woman 1984 did, where I just kind of didn't think about it very much afterwards. To a lesser extent, though, because I think at least a lot of the visuals were really cool, and, like, the character designs were really nice. So I do think about some of that often. Also, I think Black Manta was cool, so there's that. But other than that, I just don't... The movie didn't leave much of an impression on me, so there's not really a whole lot for me to say. Now coming in at number 9 on my list, I have Birds of Prey, and, you know, there's a subtitle to it, but it's really long and I can't remember it. It's been a while since I've seen this one, so I don't remember as much about it as some of the other ones on here, but from what I remember, it's a fun movie. I feel like a lot of people were hating on it a bit too much when it first came out. I saw everyone just, like, dogging on this movie like it was some horrible offense to comic book movies, but I watched it and I thought it was fine. Margot Robbie is great as Harley Quinn, as always. There are certain choices made with certain characters, like in terms of adapting them from the comics, that I think are kind of weird. One in particular stands out, but it didn't bother me too much because I just kind of let go of it after a certain point. I don't like how they handled the villain towards the end of the movie. I don't want to spoil it because I'm trying to keep the spoiler free, but there's something that happens with the villain that I just don't like. But other than that, yeah, I thought it was an alright movie. Now at my number 8 spot, I have Black Adam. If you want to see my full thoughts with like spoilers and everything on Black Adam, you can go watch my review for it. It's a few videos down from this one. But to just kind of sum up my thoughts on it here, I think it's a pretty fun, dumb action movie. It's not like it's not a bad, okay, well, it's kind of a bad movie, but it's very fun. You know, a lot of the action is really good. The character designs are great. I think almost every character in this movie looks great. I think that The Rock turns in a decent performance as Black Adam. I just realized I'm actually wearing a Black Adam shirt. There's certain things in the movie that I thought were kind of dumb and I couldn't really suspend my disbelief for, but other than that, I thought it was a pretty fun movie. Now moving on to my number 7 spot on the list, I have Batman vs. Superman. Now, I know there's a director's cut of this movie that everybody says makes it like one of the best movies in the DCEU, and it makes it way better. But I haven't seen it, and it's 3 hours long, so I'm not about to watch it for this list. It is 5 in the morning. I will not be able to stay awake for a 3-hour movie right now. So I'm just going to talk about the theatrical cut of the movie. When it first came out, I feel like I liked this movie a lot more than most people did. I remember seeing everyone panning it and just saying that it was terrible. And, you know, it's not as good as, you know, the first, like, live-action meeting of Batman and Superman should be. You know, I feel like it should have been a lot better, but I still think it's a decent movie. There's certain choices in it that I think are pretty dumb. I think most people probably know what the scene I'm talking about, but you know, I think all of the action's really good. I think Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill are just perfect casting as Batman and Superman, so it's got that going for it. But then there's also some very bizarre casting in Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, which has never sat right with me, but, you know, whatever. I think that's about all I've got to say about it. I think it's a pretty good movie. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as a lot of people were saying when it was first released, so it's at my number 7 spot. Okay, we're now at the point in the list where all the movies from this point forward I either really like or I just love them. So with that being said, at my number 6, I have Wonder Woman. This movie I thought was just great. I think it's honestly the first, like, fully female-led superhero movie that actually turned out to be good, because before this you just had, like, Catwoman and Elektra, two of which are just awful movies. They are just a pain to sit through. But this one was actually really good. I think it fumbles a bit in the third act. You know, it kind of suffers from the just like big gray CGI villain thing. But the first two acts are just really great. I think all the action is really well done. I like the characters a lot. I think Wonder Woman herself is very entertaining throughout the movie. Yeah, I just think it was a really good Wonder Woman movie. Okay, we're now entering the top 5, and kicking off our number 5 spot, I have Zack Snyder's Justice League. I really liked this movie. I don't think it's the second coming of Christ like a lot of people do, but I think it's infinitely better than the theatrical cut. And I think it's, you know, a really great Justice League movie. However, it's way too long. It is 4 hours, and there's at least like half an hour of it that could be cut out of the movie, and you wouldn't really be missing much. I do like a lot of the changes that were made to it, though, specifically with characters like Cyborg. I think he was so much better in this movie than the theatrical cut. He got so much time to shine, and I like that they didn't have that stupid CGI mustache removal that they had in the theatrical cut on Superman. That instantly brought it up in my eyes, because that was just an assault on my eyes in the theatrical version. But I think pretty much every other character here is handled better than they are in the theatrical cut, because in the original one, it just seemed like everyone was meant to be a joke, and I don't like that. There are times in this where I feel like it can be too kind of monotone and like dark, and it takes itself a bit too seriously. But I'd rather take that over everyone just being a fool that stumbles over themselves. So this is at my number 5 spot. Oh yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention was Steppenwolf, the villain of the movie, is infinitely better. His CGI is better, his character is better, he's more intimidating, all the action scenes with him are better. Like, Steppenwolf was improved a lot in my eyes, so that also brought the movie up a lot for me. So yeah. Okay, now at number 4 on my list, I have Shazam. And when Shazam came out, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air in the DCEU, because it came out after a decently long line of DC movies that were kind of or just straight up bad. So after I saw it, it surpassed all my expectations. I loved it. I loved Zachary Levi in the main role. I liked Mark Strong as the villain. I like Mark Strong in pretty much everything he's in, so I instantly liked him as the villain. I felt like it was a bit too soon to introduce the Shazam family within the first movie, but I liked the way they were handled ultimately, so it didn't bother me too much. The whole movie has this kind of childlike wonder about it, which I liked a lot, because the movie is about a kid who now has access to an adult's body, and it does show some of the things that a kid would do, and if it had access to an adult's body, like buying alcohol and stuff like that. And on top of that, he has superpowers, so he tries to stop a mugging, and it doesn't go as planned. And you know, I just think it was very entertaining, a great movie overall. Now at number 3 on my list, we have the first TV show on this list, Peacemaker. I wasn't really as excited for the show as I thought I would be, because it's a spinoff of the Suicide Squad, and I loved the Suicide Squad. But for some reason, the trailers just never really grabbed me. But after watching the show, it became one of my favorite things DC had done in years. I loved the show. I think John Cena is great as Peacemaker. I think the writing is very funny. I think most of the action scenes are very good. The character designs are well done. I'm a big fan of like anything James Gunn, so most of the time if his name's on it, there's a good chance I'm gonna enjoy it. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. That's at my number 3 spot. Okay, now at the number 2 spot on my list, I have Man of Steel. I love this movie. I think it was a great Superman movie, probably the first great Superman movie we had in a very long time. I do kind of like that they went for a more darker tone for it, even though I do prefer Superman to be a more lighthearted character, because that's who he is at his core. I'm all for different takes on characters and different interpretations of them when they're done right, and I do think this one was handled decently well. It's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe my opinion would change on it if I rewatched it today. But from what I remember, I loved it a lot. And, you know, this movie did give us Henry Cavill as Superman, which I think is one of the best castings for any superhero role ever. That man just is Superman. I think Michael Shannon was great as the villain, General Zod. I really liked him. I thought the action was very well done, although... yeah, I just think everything was pretty well done, apart from a few things that are just kind of nitpicking, really. So, yeah, that's my number 2 spot. Okay, now at my number 1 spot, I have The Suicide Squad. I was a little concerned about this movie before it came out because, you know, the first one was pretty bad. But instead of going like the direct sequel route, they went more for the soft reboot type thing, which I think was a smart decision. They have almost an entirely new cast, except for like Margot Robbie, Viola Davis, and a couple of others. And for the most part, I like all the new characters. I think all the cast does really good with the roles they're given. A standout for me was actually, I can't remember, how do you say his name? Like David Dastmalchian or something like that as Polka Dot Man. I really liked him. He was really funny throughout the movie. I liked Ratcatcher too. I don't really remember the actress's name right now. I'll put it up on screen if I remember to. But she was great. She's probably my favorite new character in the movie. Idris Elba was great. Margot Robbie is always great as Harley Quinn. John Cena was great, like I said earlier. He's great as Peacemaker. And I also really like this movie's tone. I think it does a good job kind of shifting from an all-out comedy to the darker, serious moments when it needs to. Like, for most of the movie, it is a comedy and there's a lot of jokes. But then there's stuff like the fight between Peacemaker and Rick Flag, which is a very serious scene, and actually had me pretty tense when I was watching it, which I wasn't expecting going into it, so I ended up really enjoying that. I liked the villain. I'm not going to spoil who it is if you haven't seen it, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. I just think it's overall a really great movie. It actually has worked its way over time into my top 10 favorite comic book movies ever. I love it. Alright, that was my ranking of the DCEU movies and TV shows. Leave a comment down below, let me know your ranking, whether you like this list, disagree with it, hated it, whatever. Feel free to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my future uploads. I have the link to my TikTok and my letterbox down below in the description if you want to follow me there. That's about all I've got for you today. See ya.